All right, so the Geek Out is back, man.
It has been a minute, man. It has been way too long.
Yeah, we had to take a little hiatus. Wanted to do it a little sooner than this, but I had a flood and haven't had a tournament.
Yeah, man, the gaming tournament, it was a lot of fun down on Daytona Beach. It was really fun.
She did pretty good, man. Unfortunately, they didn't come back with the belt, but hey.
It still did pretty well.
Can't win them all, right?
Yeah, can't win them all, but
hey.
I'd say if you get to place within like the top 40 players, that you're doing pretty well. So.
All right, that's cool. So, as promised, we could talk about the top 10 villains.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing, though. We had to break it down. We decided to each choose our top 5.
Yep.
And with that, kind of pitch which one, why we feel they should be the top 5, and then put them together, I guess.
Oh yeah. I definitely feel you there. So do you want to go first explaining your 5?
Nah, I'll let you go first.
Okay, awesome. So for my 5, I picked some from both DC and Marvel. So there's not really a particular order whenever I'm listing them off. These are just the top 5 in my opinion. Doc Ock from Marvel, Brainiac from DC, Deathstroke from DC, and then whenever it came to villains, because of course I play Flash and he is one of my favorite superheroes, I had to give him some love, so I picked 2 of his more famous villains. But one of them is going to be Death Racer. So Death Racer is actually he's usually referred to as Black Flash.
See, I know the Black Flash, but is the Death Racer the same thing as Black Flash or something different?
Kind of. There's a few different inconsistencies when it comes to the Death Racer, and I'll explain why in a second.
Yeah, alright.
So after that though, first I'll bring up the next villain. So the last villain being mainly for one particular battle that Flash had, where Flash ended up having to battle gods that were ending up trying to basically destroy every universe or planets, etc., and he had to save the Earth by beating omnipresent and teleporting beings to Earth. And he raced these beings and won the race, which was probably his fastest moment ever recorded. But I'm hella hyped for that.
That's why we call it the Geek Out.
Oh yeah. So for Death Racer though, to answer your question, so the reason why it gets a little bit weird with Death Racer is because there's some instances where when people refer to the Black Flash or Death Racer, etc., in one version of him, he actually is a speedster that was created from the Speed Force, designed to try to end up writing history by killing off speedsters that are messing up history. So it gets a little bit weird there. But then there's another version.
That's kind of how they did with the Black Flash storyline in this in the show.
Right.
I got you.
And then there's another version of him as well, where there is a Black Lantern core, from the Green Lanterns. The Black Lantern ring resembles death. In that storyline, they bring back one of the dead speedsters who still has a connection to the Speed Force, and he ends up being brought back to life because of a Black Lantern ring. It's kind of where his origin is. It's not set in stone, and part of that is because when you travel through time, it starts to mess with you.
Alright, let's try to start with if you had to pick your least favorite. Let's start with least favorite. Least favorite. We'll work our way down.
So when it comes to more so least favorite, I'm going to have to go with the gods that Flash had to battle in order to end up beating them in order to save the Earth. Mainly because of the storyline that they were able to create with Flash, in which he had his fastest moment ever recorded in any of speedster history. He ended up basically breaking what we can conceive of as speed, because he ended up being faster than omnipresent beings in the DC universe. And it's how can you be faster than something that's already going to instantly be there? So that was probably one of the hypest moments that Flash ever had in his career when it came to that. And there's more to that story, but that's just the generalized version.
But as them themselves,
yeah, I feel like they need to be more explained and stuff. There's a little bit more work that could be done. I love what the story arc did and stuff, and I think without them you wouldn't have that amazing story arc. But when it comes to a little bit more background knowledge and stuff, there needs to be more with them, in my opinion. So when it comes to being on my list, personally, it is because of my attraction towards the Flash and stuff, and the fact that without these villains, you wouldn't have had that amazing moment that Flash ended up having of saving that entire universe and stuff like that.
Because these villains were so OP.
Yeah, exactly.
That there was, they were going to destroy all the worlds, and
exactly. You had to have someone that was even bigger than that to overcome it.
And it was a defining moment for the Flash.
Yeah, exactly. In that case, it was the Wally West Flash, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that is the fastest moment that he's ever had.
I think he's the fastest Flash, right? Isn't he the fastest? Maybe that's the reason, because of that. I don't know.
But that is the
all
reason,
the Flash storylines. But, all right, so now number 4.
So number 4 for me would probably have to be, it's pretty close to be honest, but I would probably have to say Brainiac as well, and for similar reasons.
Really?
So Brainiac has a lot of interesting storylines, in my opinion, that end up branching out when it comes to storylines such as Injustice 2, which just happens to be something I know about, but as well as like in Superman storylines or any type of storyline where he ends up coming to planet Earth, and usually it's, I'm going to take a city and then try to destroy the planet, which is what he's basically known for, but he's not as good at it as, like, say, what was the Marvel villain that ends up using, like, cosmic energy and eats planets and stuff like that? Well, yeah,
I was actually going to say, that's what I like about Brainiac, because he's almost like the equivalent to Galactus.
Yeah, Galactus, yeah.
And also, he's like a combination of Galactus and Voltron in a sense, where he's got that, that
tech base.
That tech base, and he's just OP on a mental level.
The thing that makes it in my 4, though, and the reason I can't put him higher, is because of a similar reason to the previous one that I just listed. For a character that has that much of a supposedly attachment to a character like Superman, and who has such a strong basis for game starters such as Injustice 2, I feel like his backstory, even though that we know what it is, does not have a lot of depth, a lot of connection to it, and that's the only reason why I can't put him higher in my list.
So
is because it's like very generalized.
I expected him to be higher too, but I can see that.
I feel like it's too generalized.
All right, number 3.
All right, so my number 3. This is where it starts to get good. So, in my opinion, I think that Death Racer takes a very strong 3rd place, and that's because when it comes to Death Racer, anything that Death Racer gets involved in when it comes to Flash comic books in general, you're immediately going to start dealing with paradoxes, possibly revived reverse flashes and stuff like this coming out of nowhere, traveling into the Speed Force, all this insane stuff happening every single time that you end up seeing Death Racer on screen.
Okay.
You know that something serious is going down. It's never going to be like a dull moment. You have to be paying attention to whatever's happening, and there's always going to be something interesting with him.
Death Racer, he's basically a dead zombie-like creature where he doesn't have like a romantic interest to kind of humanize, and he just out for the
he's
kill.
His own thing. Yeah,
I gotcha.
And it's very, very interesting in the differences when you see Death Racer as well as the Black Lantern Corps version of him, where he actually is just a revived like speedster. The differences that you see in them can be interesting, because like you'll see little itty bitty differences between the two, and it's like, I wonder why in this variation he did XYZ versus the similar situation he did XYZ. There's like little characteristic things, because it makes you wonder, like, is there really a mind behind the zombie?
Everybody loves a sense of mystery.
Exactly.
Alright.
So that character has a little bit more depth to him, in my opinion.
Alright, number 2.
Alright, number 2. So this top 2 was actually very hard for me to end up picking out, and it came between 2 people. So I had to end up giving this thought, and it was very hard for me to do this because I love both of these characters, but I gave number 2 to Deathstroke. So in my opinion, Deathstroke is probably one of the most underrated DC villains in comics, mainly because mainly because when he was like starting to get involved in stuff, he spawned so many different things to happen in place once he ended up getting created, etc. So very similar story of a Weapon X program ended up, being exposed to different stuff to end up becoming the ultimate super soldier. So enhanced senses, fast healing, naturally trained by different like fighting styles, etc. But his connections to so many different people, in my opinion, are what make this character interesting. He ended up having connections with Ra's al Ghul, ended up fighting guys such as Batman, parts of different type of evil superhero leagues, ended up having his own arch nemesis, including like one of my other favorite characters, Nightwing, who ended up fighting him whenever he was younger as part of the Teen Titans.
That's one of the reasons why I find him as a very unique character, because he has such a connection with Robin of all people.
Yep.
And if I remember correctly, didn't he even like kind of take Robin under his wing and train him, and like was it like a brainwash thing or something?
He messed with Robin pretty hardcore, to be honest, to try to end up like manipulating him and stuff. That stuff got insane. I think he even
turned him against the Teen Titans and everything, right? Yep. So yeah, that's a incredible feat in itself. But
yeah, he had a lot of insane storylines and stuff going all the way through.
And if there was any villain that I would say that can probably go toe-to-toe to Batman, would be Deathstroke. So.
Yeah, Deathstroke I'd say is very underrated as well.
For sure.
Alright, so now we get to the number one spot.
Yeah, so juicy stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The main reason that I picked this character, I've already said his name earlier, so I might as well say it now. Dr. Octopus. So a lot of people usually end up thinking of like just Spider-Man 2, basic storyline. They kind of know the gist of it. He had mechanical arms, was a normal guy. Then the arms started messing with his head, and then he ended up becoming, the evil villain that we know and love today. Right. But what makes him so unique is honestly what has been happening in recent comics to me. This is the only reason that I had to pick him, and I put him in my number one spot. So in like the Spider-Man universe, Doc Ock is definitely going to be considered one of his number one villains, right next to Green Goblin. But the reason why I put him there instead of Green Goblin was because there is a comic that ended up coming out where both of them end up fighting until they're both, really old. So Spider-Man starts fighting him as a teenager. He gets into like his 30s. Dr. Octopus is now like into his 60s, etc., starting to become an old man. Still fighting though, using science to try to keep his body and science alive, as well as trying to, make out whatever he can to try to, hurt the spider. So now at this point, Peter Parker is like a billionaire. He's the next Tony Stark at this point, is basically what he is when he gets older. And he still is fighting Dr. Octopus. It gets to a point where Dr. Ock starts suffering from a disease to the point where he knows it's going to kill him. But he still wants to kill Spider-Man. He thinks of the most genius plan to end up finally getting the spider into his own grips.
Alright, what's this?
He intentionally captures Spider-Man to switch his consciousness out with Peter's, and successfully does it to the point where, so when Doc Ock ends up switching it, Doc Ock basically becomes the physical body of Peter Parker, and Peter Parker physically becomes the body of Dr. Octopus.
I remember this because I was almost going to bring this up. So wasn't there a time where he actually became Spider-Man?
Yep. And this is where it gets insane though. He literally mocks Peter while Peter is on Doc Ock's deathbed, and Peter Parker, his consciousness, dies with Dr. Octopus's body. So Doc Ock gets to live inside of the body of Peter Parker. He actually becomes the next level Spider-Man. He never tells anyone and stuff who he actually is, never tells anyone that he killed the real Peter Parker, and actually lives Peter's life. And becomes like, I want to give the name of the Spider-Man. It's not like the Ultimate Spider-Man. It begins with like the Superior. That's what it is. The Superior Spider-Man. Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that too, because he's the only one that actually ever killed Spider-Man. A lot of people have thought they killed Spider-Man, and that's one of my people that I thought about putting in my top 5, but I couldn't. Craven. So I really hope they do that storyline. Craven kills Spider-Man and everything, but you guys can check that out later.
Oh, yeah.
So that's real good top 5. Real interesting, especially Doc Ock. That's a surprising one, but I can see why now that you explained it. So my turn, right?
Yep.
All right. So my top 5, I have Carnage. I have Dr. Doom, Magneto, the Joker, and last but not least, Lex Luthor. Now I gave you guys top 5, but that's not the order.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I would say Carnage, number 5, and it's not easy. This is not an easy list.
I'm actually kind of shocked.
This is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life.
I can understand that.
No, but Carnage, he's insane. He's like got the mentality of the Joker, but he's got the powers of Venom. So he's so OP and so unpredictable, and that's the thing. Like it took Spider-Man and Venom to team up to beat him, and then he keeps coming back with more stuff. And his level of mentality, like the Joker as well. It's carefree. There's nobody he cares about, and nobody cares about hurting. And when it comes to a true villain, that's the scariest thing, you know.
Yeah, the unpredictability.
Yeah. So that's why he's in my top 5. But compared to the other 4, I had to put him as number 5. Because moving on to number 4, I'd say Lex Luthor.
Oh, okay.
And there's probably a bunch of people out there shouting and cussing me out right now. Lex Luthor should be higher. And like I said, it wasn't easy. But Lex Luthor, man, became president, alright? Let's start with that. No other villain I could think of ever just, became president. Yeah. Like, he's over there breaking the law, committing all these felonies against man, the crimes against mankind, yet he becomes the president. Right?
Yeah.
And not to mention, he is the ultimate enemy to Superman, right? The most OP character in, well, arguably, in at least in DC, but in comic books history. But Lex Luthor is just a regular man. Yeah, he's the only person that ever gets over on Superman, and then he's a super genius as well as being super suave and just being able to win over the public. He's like low-key my idol, other than the fact that I'm not some evil villain that wants to take over the world, and I'm a lot more open-minded. If aliens were to come to the planet and start saving humans, I'm gonna be like okay with it, unlike Luthor was, unfortunately. But sometimes you hear his arguments and you're almost like, I'm voting for Lex. Like, oh wait, he's the bad guy. Never mind. But so that's why he's up there, and it's hard to put him at 4. But the other 3, I just can't give them any less than the top 3, and it was hard to put them even in an order. I almost want to put them all tied. So I'm gonna start with Magneto.
Oh, okay. At 3, okay.
Magneto, yeah, and I'm telling you, Magneto is probably one of my all-time favorite characters, period. So it's hard for me to say number 3. But with Magneto, man, first off, he's the Malcolm X to the Martin Luther King and Professor X was,
Okay. Yeah.
Ironically. But he was able to start a movement. You know what I mean? He had followers. He had people backing him up. And there was nothing that could stand in his way of doing what he felt was right for his people. It wasn't even about him, where most of these villains are very selfish. Right. Magneto's about his people, but again, he's very prejudiced, just like Lex Luthor, whereas I'm a more open-minded person, so that's probably the reason why he got down to number 3. But the things he has done, he has taken over. He's taken over so much. He's even created his own, has his own country, his own island, and everything like that. What was unbelievable. He's even has been taken over the X-Men. He's even taken over the X-Men and had them working in his type of way. He didn't take over. So it wasn't like he took over the X-Men and all of a sudden he's a good guy. He's like he took over the X-Men and he was doing good things, but he always low-key had his own agenda, and when it came down to it, and he would win some of them over, like Scott Summers, Cyclops was became one of his followers, and Rogue, he fell in love. And that's the other thing, he's a pimp. People sleep on Magneto, man. For real, he's been with like Rogue was one of his girls for a while. I'm sure Mystique, but a lot of people don't know this. The Wasp.
Really?
This is one of my favorite storylines of the all-time comic history, The Secret Wars, right?
Oh, I never even thought about The Secret Wars.
And there was it was strange because Magneto was a villain, and he ended up on the hero ship because they had separate ships.
Right.
And Magneto's like, screw this, I'm gonna go do me. And he goes and creates himself a castle and everything, and does him. While the superheroes are trying to figure out what's going on, they're like, let's go recruit Magneto. So the Wasp is like, I'll go talk to him. Shit goes over there and he ends up smashing.
Oh my god.
And then afterwards he's like, yeah, I ain't helping you guys, you can go now. I'm like, oh man, that was one of the most cheap things ever. So sorry to bring it up right before the Ant and Wasp. You guys, if you watch that, you might have a different look at
wow.
I look at her, but hey, she wasn't always with Ant-Man. But anyways, so you just gotta give it up for Magneto. But then you gotta give number 2, and if y'all can't see, I'm wearing him right now. It's kind of dangerous for me to show you guys right now. But the Joker. How can the Joker not be in the top 2? Come on, man. He is like...
I mean, I could see it. I understand why. I mean, the amount of relationships and stuff he's had when it comes to Batman, the advancements of like Harley Quinn, the stuff that he got involved in for a guy that doesn't have powers or anything like that. Because insanity.
With me, when it comes down to the fact that when there's a villain that just is willing to do anything and everything, just doesn't care about anybody or anything, that's the ultimate villain right there. There's nobody that the Joker cares about, and nothing that he cares about more than destroying Batman's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just it's an ultimate passion. He's psychotic. It's insane. He's unpredictable. He has Harley Quinn. He's got these followers. And he still doesn't care about any of them. He'll let any of them, even Harley Quinn, his right-hand girl, die without hesitation. And to me, that's the ultimate, an ultimate bad guy right there, the ultimate villain. And then to top it off, like you mentioned, he doesn't have much powers. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he's not a big jack guy. He's like a scrawny, regular-looking dude, and he's the biggest foe to Batman. You know what I mean?
One of the biggest good guys there ever was.
One of the baddest superheroes out there, and he puts up a good fight, man. You see, because even Batman, as smart as he is, and I almost wanted to put Riddler in my list, but because I'm all about the ingenious, and the Riddler's one of the only people that can outsmart Batman. But at the same time, the Joker can. The Joker has several times, unfortunately. He has. And then to top it off, like you said, with the relationships, he has done things that other villains have never done. He has crossed lines that other villains haven't crossed. For example, what he did to Batgirl, breaking her back and her spine and paralyzing her after nobody would, and they insinuated she was raped, and he sent pictures of her naked to her own father. Like, that is just despicable and disgusting. Like, I'm like,
that was intense.
I'm a little grossed out by the writers coming up with this, but at the same time, that's just the level of villainy and disturbing villainy that only the Joker can bring.
Yeah.
And to top it off, he killed Robin.
I forgot about that. He killed Tim Drake, who also became Red Hood.
He killed the Robin, and that was, another moment in history, in Batman history, that is unforgettable, and and another line that was crossed that most villains haven't crossed. So we're not about number 2. Fast forward, I guess you guys see why. But number 1. This one, surprisingly, probably easier than I played it off, but Dr. Doom is my all-time favorite villain.
It's a good pick. That's a good pick.
Dr. Doom is so underrated because of the poor displays they have done of him in the movies and the cinema.
Yeah.
But he is when it comes to Marvel Universe, he is the number 1 villain. He is the ultimate villain. Forget Galactus, forget all these OP people, because he's beat them all. He's beat some of the gods, like you said. They call them the Eternals or whatever. You know, the people that were there before time. They were beat by Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom's defeated everybody, and is arguably smarter, if not the smartest person in the Marvel Universe. So they say he's possibly smarter than Reed Richards and Tony Stark's. He's damn near the evil version of Tony Stark's, because most of his powers comes from his tech and his brain. And, you know, I mentioned how the Joker has followers. Well, this dude has his own kingdom.
Yeah, his own country. And
they love him. His own country, they love him too. He doesn't even have to like threaten their lives or anything like that for them to love him. They just follow him because they love him. And then he has, you know, Joker has henchmen, but he has infinite amount of Doom bots.
Yeah.
And these Doom bots are OP or just as OP as him. Like, they have all his powers, and some of them even portray him to the point that they believe that they are him, and everybody else does. And the whole time he's just playing everybody, and nobody does that. Yeah. Nobody does that. And because I don't want to take up too much time, like I can spend all day talking about Doom, man. Love the guy, man. You know, back to the Secret Wars. The Secret Wars storyline. Magneto had an awesome story, but the best storyline in that was Dr. Doom, because what happens is there's an one of the Eternals, forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, but you know, one of those guys, the OP guys with all this power, kidnaps everybody, all the superheroes, all the villains, and take them to this world that he creates for them to fight each other. Battle World, I believe it was called. And you know, just like how Magneto goes off and does his own thing, Dr. Doom does that to the villains, because he's like, forget you guys, I don't need your help. Now, Doom has teamed up with people. There's another thing like about Doom. Doom has teamed up with other villains, but only to use them. He's never gave them his real agenda. He just used them to get what he wanted in the end. Doom is villain to the villains, you know what I'm saying? So to wrap up the story, what ends up happening is Doom is like, this guy that brought us here has so much power that he had to take it, and he does, and he becomes so powerful, you know what I'm saying? Now he's the one controlling everything, and what happens? He destroys the universe. He destroys the universe to recreate it. That is Doom level of villainy.
That's insane.
So that's why Dr. Doom is my number one. And to top it off, he's still human under all that and everything, and he shows his moments, even though a lot of times it's for his own personal goals. But you know, yeah. So there's my top 5, man. You know,
that's a good top 5.
I appreciate it, man. So we took a long we got. We have a top 10 here, you know, my 5 versus his 5. We'll let you guys decide what order you want to put it in. Who's got the better top 5? If you want to put your order together, maybe mix it up a little bit.
Leave it in the comments.
Yeah, definitely. For sure, guys. To the next Geek Out.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We're going to do the Ant-Man Wasp review coming up.
Yo, I forgot about Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm so excited to see that movie, man.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. You guys, stay tuned. Have a good one. Keep geeking out.